All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome in. So Aaron Glenn met with the media at the owners' meetings and had some pretty interesting answers. Of course, nothing too crazy, but listening to Aaron Glenn speak, you can definitely tell he has a presence about him. You could tell that he's going to do things his way, and it really feels like the Jets are going to be doing things differently compared to recent years or even recent regimes, right? Aaron Glenn talking about like you don't win the offseason. When it comes to the Jets, you kind of feel like the Jets are like focused on winning the offseason every single year. So let's dive into these answers here. And starting off first with Justin Fields, Aaron Glenn said we're going to let him play quarterback. That's what he's always wanted to do. I'm not saying he hasn't had a chance to do that in other places. That's not my issue, but I know what I want to do with that player. On the perception that Fields needs to improve his processing, that's everybody's opinion. I think he's able to process well when he's given the opportunity. If you go back and watch when he was in college, he was able to progress as far as reading coverages. To me, I think he had a chance to do that, and he did it pretty well. And he talked about how Justin Fields still has room to grow as a quarterback and continue, moving in the right direction. We obviously heard Darren Muji talk about the whole Justin Fields situation yesterday when he met with the media. So it's clear, right? It seems like these two or this regime is high on Justin Fields. Of course, no one's saying that he's a top 5, top 10 quarterback, but it's a young quarterback with a lot of potential who hasn't really reached his ceiling at this point in time. And they obviously have a plan for him. They made it known. Hey, day one, we're gonna make it happen. Right, 2-year deal, 40 mil, 30 mil guaranteed. That's not a contract that this team is gonna give out to a guy that they're like, yeah, I guess let's sign him. No, it's totally fair, assuming that the Jets really like Justin Fields and that he's going to be the team's starting quarterback in 2025. So I'm excited for Fields, man. I really can't wait. In regards to Sauce Gardner's ability to bounce back next season, Aaron Glenn said, this is a grown man's league. You're not going to be at the top of your game every year. He has it in him. I'm not worried about last year. That's the thing with Gardner, man. It's like the first 2 seasons were super impressive, right? Obviously all pro seasons. Last year, it kind of felt like his weaknesses of his game were just magnified, and just admittedly, there were a lot of questions. Tackling, too physical when the football's already in the air with the receiver on the outside, causing a lot of penalties or a lot of like interesting situations where even if the flag isn't thrown, fans of the other team are like, what is this guy doing? I mean, he's all over the wide receiver. He doesn't follow the number 1. That could change with Aaron Glenn because that was like a defensive philosophy with Saleh and Jeff Ulbrich, but up to this point has not shadowed the best wide receiver. And also up to this point has been somewhat of a liability stopping the run. So, it'll be interesting to see how the Jets want to utilize Gardner. I do think in this style of system, of course, Aaron Glenn being the former cornerback, he's going to look at Gardner and his just raw physical traits. That was Gardner's biggest positive coming out of college, right? The athletic ability, someone that tall with that length that moves like that. He's so shifty. He's so quick on his feet for such a long, lanky type of corner. That's the rare ability when it comes to Gardner. So I think Aaron Glenn is just going to look at those natural tools that not many people possess and say, you know what? I can work with this. This is going to fit my system. What's in the past is in the past, and we're going to move forward in this new style here. And then, of course, when Garrett Wilson came up, Aaron Glenn said, I wasn't here last year. I don't care what happened last year. And he did say that Garrett Wilson is in a good place now. We did get the report, I think it was like a week and a half ago here, that Justin Fields and Garrett Wilson have already talked. It seems like Garrett Wilson is, fine and is, there's not going to be some sort of holdout or, trade request coming or anything like that. It seems like everything's all good. Whenever you're in the off season, it's tough because players aren't going to be, getting asked questions. Like you kind of just have to rely on specific reports and just stuff coming out about the team and of course interviews like this. But up to this point, no trade request, no sort of weird stuff on social media. It seems like Garrett is pumped with Justin Fields, and I'm excited to see what he's going to do in this new style of offense. One thing that Garrett Wilson has not had is good coaching on the offensive side of the football. I preferred Mike LaFleur over, of course, what we've had these past couple of seasons, but even with Mike LaFleur, he wasn't, an elite OC. And I did feel like he was young. He was trying to learn the ropes, and there were speed bumps there along the way, installing an offense, developing a rookie quarterback with Zach. There was a lot of things happening on Mike LaFleur's plate. Robert Saleh not really contributing at all on the offensive side of the football. So therefore, again, just adding to the list of responsibilities. It's not like Matt Nagy with the Chiefs having Andy Reid as your head coach. Like you have a lot of assistants in that area. But again, with LaFleur, it just wasn't really the case. But I digress. The point is, Garrett Wilson working with Tanner Engstrand, a new style of scheme, a new quarterback here. We'll see a quarterback that he's close with and that he's also worked with before in the past. I'm excited to see what will take place, what will transpire this season. But this is really all we can ask for at this point in time, right? If Garrett, in regards to Garrett's kind of, I guess, maybe morale with the team. And of course, extending the young players on this team came up, and that has been a massive talking point. But Aaron Glenn said, I'm in the business of keeping good players. That's our plan. And of course, right, I mean, you're listening to all these different coaching interviews, right? Sean McDermott yesterday. I was watching the Kevin Stefanski one earlier. Like, they're not just good. Mike Vrabel had an interesting one. He talked about Will Campbell, Armand Membu, switching from the left side to the right side. I think it's pretty rare that a coach is just going to show up to the owners meetings and just start spilling the beans on draft plans, on, exact, situations with their depth chart, maybe like big questions to other teams. They're just going to come out and just say, okay, here's all the answers. Like, for what? Like, there's literally 0 point. But, you got to imagine here that Aaron Glenn wants to retain Garrett Wilson, wants to retain Sauce Gardner, wants to retain all these good young players that the Jets have. Or even if he doesn't feel comfortable, or Muji feels comfortable extending them today because they did not draft them, they have not worked with them, they have not been in the building with them, they've not really seen them operate on a day-to-day basis, that's okay. I could understand that, right? Just me putting my kind of Jet fan bias aside. Like, if, let's just use an example, Kellen Moore, right, new head coach of the Saints, walks in and is like, I really like Chris Olave, but I don't necessarily know if I want to extend him right now. I want to really get into the season, see how he is day to day, see how he practices, things like that. I didn't draft the guy. I like him. He's good. And then maybe halfway through the year, 3/4, or even after the season, now we can really open up that, that contract extension talks. I'm not going to sit here and fault Kellen Moore for that. Again, just objectively speaking. So with the Jets, I feel like I kind of have to keep the same sort of mindset, But it's different because, we've seen all the snaps. We've seen all the plays. We've seen all the reports from these guys. But these are newcomers coming into the organization. So if Aaron Glenn wants to say, hey, before we make Gardner a top 3 highest paid corner in the NFL, also, who knows, what's going to happen with the cap moving forward, I kind of want to see him in my style of defense. I want to see how his playing style is. I want to see how I can coach him, right? Do we mesh? Will he quit? All these just, sort of natural questions that a coach would have about a player that he hasn't worked with. But I think the early indication is, yeah, of course I want to, have these guys here for the long haul, but we haven't coached, we haven't worked with them one-on-one at this point in time. So anyway, let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Thanks so much for watching. I appreciate it. I got a mock draft coming soon. I'm excited about it. And, yeah, April's going to be crazy. Really, really crazy here with all the different reports and rumblings as the draft is getting closer and closer. So thanks a lot. And as always, go Jets.